Come on down, George Washington. It's time to go outside, Casey said. The president's cat, George, was sitting on top of the refrigerator. Will you get him down, Marshall? Casey asked. We have to practice for the wedding. Casey Corcoran and Marshall Lee were best friends. They lived in Washington, D.C., but today they were in the White House. Casey's mom was going to marry the President of the United States next week. Casey would hold her mom's flowers during the ceremony, and Marshall would be the ring bearer, with George's help. What's to practice? Marshall grumbled. Your mom says I do, then the president says I do, then it's over. Casey rolled her eyes. This is a White House wedding, Marsh, she said. Everything has to be perfect. The whole world will be watching on TV. Marshall raised his eyebrows. I'll be on TV? He asked. Casey nodded. We'll all be on TV, she said. Even George. That's why we have to practice making him walk down the aisle. Marshall grabbed George, while Casey opened the door that led out of the president's private quarters. Arnold, the Marine guard on duty, saluted them. Afternoon, Casey, he said. Afternoon, Marshall. Hi, Arnold, the kids said. Arnold took off one white glove and stroked George under the chin. Then he sneezed. Are you allergic to cats? Marshall asked. Arnold sniffed. No, I have a cold and a sore throat, he said with a hoarse voice. Casey noticed that Arnold's nose was red. His eyes looked watery and puffy. I hope you feel better for the wedding, Casey said. Thanks, Arnold said. I'll try. Casey and Marshall left Arnold and walked to the rose garden. Marshall set George down, and Casey tied a green ribbon to his collar. Why does George need a silly green ribbon? Marshall asked. What's wrong with a piece of rope or something? The ribbon matches Mom's dress, my dress, and your vest, Casey reminded him. The wedding is color coordinated. Maybe I'll get sick like Arnold, Marshall muttered. He looked at his hand. You know, my skin does look a little green. Perfect. You'll fit right into the color scheme, Casey crowed. Let's get started. Casey pulled a wad of string from her pocket and made a long, straight line on the lawn. This is where we have to walk, she said to Marshall. The wedding guests will be sitting in chairs on both sides. I know that, said Marshall, but someone had better explain it to George. George was half under a bush, investigating a line of ants. Get him out of there before his ribbon gets tangled, Casey said. Marshall tugged George out from under the bush and set him down near the string. Okay. Casey began humming the wedding march. She took small steps over to where the president would be waiting. Now it's time for the rings, Casey called to Marshall. Come on, George. Let's walk, said Marshall, as he bent to pick up the cat's ribbon. But George had a different idea. He bolted across the lawn, the ribbon flying behind him. Hey, that's the wrong way, Marshall yelled. He and Casey chased after George, who disappeared in some shrubbery. Marsh, why'd you let him run away? Casey asked. She peeked into a thorny bush covered with pink rose blossoms. I didn't let him do anything, Marshall said. I'm not an animal trainer, you know. I hope he doesn't take off during the wedding, Casey said. He'll have the wedding rings around his neck. That's why we're practicing, Marshall said. "And so far, it's a big flop.